What if you bought a stock Jeep Wrangler YJ and you want to hit the trails? Not the heavyweight stuff, just your lightweight, medium trails. What upgrades would you need to get done? Let's go. Hold up. Some of you people out there can be all froggy. Put a Dana 60 under the front, 14 bolt under the rear, and you can do anything. Yes. Look, chill out, okay? This video is about people who are broke, okay? You can go to the junkyard, find the parts you need, or go to the auto parts stores, buy upgrades. I mean, stuff you can upgrade the factory components, except for one little item, we'll touch on it later, that you can wheel the moderate trails with. Cool. All right, let's do this. So if I had a stock YJ and I was going to take it out with, the very first part I would take care of is that central axle disconnect. Kind of get what Chrysler AMC was trying to do. They just wanted to know more fuel efficient because, I mean, the government mandated them to put track bars under it. So if they're going to make these upgrades to make the government happy, let's try to do something make it more fuel efficient. Well, I mean, come on. How do you make a flat windshield that's almost vertical, a flat grille? Hello, you're not getting a whole lot of fuel efficiency out of this thing. I'll give them an A for effort, but an F for results. The central axle disconnect is probably one of the most problematic things of the Jeep YJ. Get rid of it. Now, the most common option to get rid of the CAD is going to what you call a posi-lock system. And what that is a cable that goes under your dash. You pull this cable back and forth, and you do away with a vacuum pod that's underneath the axle here. When you pull that cable back and forth, it mechanically hooks onto a fork that's inside the axle, moves that fork back and forth like this by cable, not by vacuum. So therefore you eliminate that diaphragm and all those vacuum lines that comes with it. So you get a mechanical link between the cable on your dash to your front axle to engage and disengage. I like them. They serve a good purpose for a street / trail rig. So your call. I'll drop a link down below. You guys can check out the pricing on it. Now let's stir the pot a little bit. There is a less common but very, like the least expensive way to do away with that CAD. Now I'm not going to say I pioneered the idea, but I've had the video out there on YouTube for a long time. And there are many people in the Facebook groups who have adopted this idea as a cheap way of getting rid of the CAD and simulating a one-piece axle. Y'all, some of you experienced ones may know what I'm talking about here. Hose clamps, just regular hose clamps like you'd use on your heater hose or something like that. Slide that collar over to engage the two-piece axle. Hose clamp here will hold that collar from sliding back over, and it'll keep it permanently engaged. Now, the reason I said this is controversial because in the Facebook groups, people who, I've done the hose clamp trick and it works perfect, and it does, because I'm running that right now, and I've been all over these hills. I've been to Adventure Off-Road Park, black level trails. I've wheeled the snot out of this rig, and I'm running hose clamps right now. Now, I know a moment ago I said I had the posi-lock set up in this, and the cable's still there. I took the fork off of it because when I broke the cable, I mean, it's still run under the Jeep, but when I broke the cable, I'm like, well, I'm hosed. But that was me going to make videos for you guys showing the difference between the posi-lock engaged and disengaged with a locker. So when it broke, only option I had to have four-wheel drive was to put the hose clamp back in. So you guys can look at that video. The date on it, I don't remember. It's been many years since I've done it, and I've run those hose clamps ever since. So to everyone out there who's saying, well, that's just so dumb using hose clamps, just do it right. That's so... What's that saying? If it works, it ain't stupid. Now that leads into the next option. There's some of you out there going to say, wait a minute, you know it's not that expensive to put a one-piece axle in. Yeah, I get it. I know. I actually have a set at the house. I have a set of XJ axles, one piece, that I can pull this axle out right here, slide that XJ axle in, do away with the hose clamp. I mean, it's just like the XJs and TJs at that point, which is a solid upgrade, which eliminates a lot of the headaches. But there's a caveat to that. Whenever you guys do that, you just need the block off plate to where the CAD used to be, but you've got a seal inside your axle. Whenever you've got your CAD right here, your oil seal, okay, CAD right here, tire, okay, tires right there, your CAD is about right along here on the axle down here, okay? on the pumpkin side, the ring gear side of where that cad's at, there's an oil seal right there that prevents oil, your axle grease, from spilling out the end of the axle shaft. Whenever you do the one-piece axle conversion, you got to take that seal out, move it in next to the ring gear. So you got to pull your center chunk, your ring gear and all that stuff out. You got to pull that out, press the seal in place, then put the one-piece axle in. So depending on your mechanical abilities, sometimes that can be out of the scope of some people's comfort zone, okay? But doing the hose clamp trick, you can do away with all that. It doesn't matter. I've wheeled the crap out of this thing on hose clamps. And yes, some of you are going to chime in. There's also the option of doing the CV axles. And I will eventually probably put CV shafts in this when I get ready to go to one-piece axle. But I'll still want to get me another cable for the posi lock on this, because I owe you guys some videos on the difference between engaged, disengaged with the front locker. Eliminate that CAD, get that headache over with. Now the next part is a controversial one, track bars. Now the people who's actually done the research will know that track bars were put on these Jeeps out of a government mandate and an insurance mandate. Not because this is gonna make it safe. Well, that's what the pencil pushers and the desk jockeys were saying, okay? Most of your pencil pushers and desk jockeys, or whatever you want to call them, they rarely, they're going to be in their BMWs because they're rich and da-da-da-da. They don't get out and actually have fun in the woods, okay? So they really don't know what the heck's going on. They just know that the government's going to pad their pockets if they do what they say. Now, the controversy within the groups comes from this. There are people who had the mentality that, well, if the factory engineers did it, it's got to be right. No. Now, some people live by the mantra that if they come from the factory with it, there's a reason for it being there. And I'm not going to jump on my soapbox and tell them how much this is wrong, that's right, whatever. I don't care. You do you, okay? But I've had my track bars out for years, okay? Not a problem. Now, some people don't like the way it feels because they get so used to driving down the road. When you turn right, the Jeep automatically responds. Turn left, it automatically responds. It's because the axles have no flex, because you've got that track bar holding the axle, keep from it moving back and forth. Okay, that sounds like a good thing up front, but here's the deal. This is a leaf spring rig. So Chevrolet, Ford, International Scout, there's so many different manufacturers out there that ran leaf springs from the factory with no track bar. Many years ago, there was a test performed on the old CJs showing how easy they were to topple over, tip over and stuff like that from sudden maneuver changes and things like that. But in this video, they really overly exaggerated. They had weights hanging out the side of it, and as they're driving down the track, they're snatching it back and forth like it's right here. I don't care what kind of truck you drive. If you're that rough, just keep working it, and making momentum, physics, bring it back and forth. Guess what's going to happen? It's going to tip over. You ain't getting out of it, and I don't care what vehicle you're doing it with. So here come the government mandates and the insurance companies telling AMC to put track bars under it. Now, let's be straight about this, okay? This is not a Ferrari. This is not a Corvette. It's a Jeep. Drive it like a Jeep, and you're fine. Now, one thing that does, and I'm gonna be 100% open and honest about it, whenever you do remove the track bars, it will feel different. It will, not a question about it. With the track bars, because it's not allowing the axle to move back and forth, when you do a turn, it's a sudden boom. It's a sudden boom. I mean, it just suddenly changes because that track bar is holding that axle rigid, and it's actually fighting the leaf springs. The leaf springs are designed to go up and down, okay? Track bars are made to go up and down on one end. So whenever you got your leaf springs like this, it's designed to go straight up and down, not side to side, okay? Keep that in mind. As that track bar rotates, you got a center pivot here. As it rotates, it's pulling the leaf springs like this right here. It binds against each other. I mean, it's the front shackles underneath here, they're not designed to go like this. That's the reason you got the bushings and two shackles in line like that. But that track bar is forcing it to go at an arc like this. So that really binds up the suspension, kills your articulation. There's so much negative that comes along with that. I gotta change my battery real quick. Be right back. So one option you could do with that would be that you can get track bars that have a collar on them, that whenever you unlock the collar, the track bar slides in and out. It's like it telescopes. So when you're on the trails out here and you're playing and doing your thing, that track bar will expand and contract to allow articulation for your axle flex and, going up and down, smoother rides and all that kind of fun stuff. And so whenever you hit back on the streets, you can lock that sucker down, and now you're straight. And also that'll satisfy your inspectors and stuff. So down below, check that list, and you'll see the videos of some of the mods we talk about and some of the products that you may be able to use to do said upgrades. Cool? Cool. So a moment ago, I kind of leaned over and said, oh yeah, my sway bar's tied up to the frame. Why? Because there's sway bar disconnects. Sway bars, I'll go along with it on the highway because they do help hold the Jeep flat. You know, you go into curves, you get less body sway, stuff like that. But again, like I said a moment ago, it's not a Ferrari. It's not a Corvette, okay? Drive it like a Jeep. It's not that big of an issue. But they do make sway bar disconnects, which I'll link that video up below where I put them on this one. And a buddy of mine, his JK, I put some on his as well. And I'll link that up in case you got a JK and you just happen to be watching this. Your sway bar is designed, it goes like this, and you've got these on the ends of it that joins to your axle. It twists like it's right here. So as this side of the axle comes up, it'll twist that sway bar. It helps hold your body flat to the axle. It has a great purpose, it really does. But on the trails, it really limits your suspension travel because it has to keep twisting that sway bar. It only goes so far until it says it's going to pick that tire up off the ground, or it's not going to allow it to stuff as far as it could. So it really hurts your articulation. So get your sway bar disconnects and get them installed. So that way when you go down the highway, you can be nice and solid going down the road, turning them curves real smooth. But when you're ready to hit the trails and you need that flexi flex, disconnect them and go have some fun. So, yes. Someone buys themselves a Jeep. Yes. What is the first thing that most people do when they buy themselves a Jeep? They cover it in lights. Got them on the hood, got them on the bumper, got the big light bar up top, got them on the A-pillars. Lights everywhere. But what's that ongoing joke whenever they get on the trails and they can't do anything? Oh yeah, they want lights before lockers. Yeah, let's talk about lockers. And we're not talking about nothing expensive. Do a selectable, which let's just say if I was stinking rich, I would run selectable lockers. But guess what? I'm broke. So selectable lockers is not an option for me. Okay. So I'm running a lunchbox locker in the front of this. The rear of it has a Ford 8.8 with a limited slip in it. It does a great job on the trails. The Spartan lockers are super easy to install. You simply take out your spider gears, you put this locker in, which is not, I've got a video showing how to install it, okay? But, you know, you just put your little springs and pins in, pop them out, pull these little pins, and installs. It's really not hard. But I'll link that video up down below. Once you get through watching this video, you can check that out. But putting a locker in it definitely helps a lot. Now, one of the most common questions is that, Chuck, I want to install a locker. Which one should I go first, front or rear? Go front first. Simply because whenever you come up to an obstacle, like this little small log right here, if I had a locker in the rear but not in front, one of my tires was going to be, it's going to spin before it pulls up over that log. Versus having a locker in the front, it's easier for a vehicle. Now, the reason I say vehicle is just because it comes to play with any off-road vehicle. It doesn't matter if it's a side-by-side, if it's a Jeep, if it's a Toyota, Ford Bronco, what, it doesn't matter. It's easier for your rig to pull over an object than it is for the back tires to push over an object, okay? So always lock your front first. There's tons of options on the market for lockers, and definitely, you know, Spartan, which is what I've got here, Lockrite, Torque Locker. There's many different options out there. So when we were talking about the lockers, I mentioned that I had an 8.8 rear under this thing. These things come factory with the Dana 35s, not known to be a strong axle. And this is one of those things that, you know, I'm said in the beginning of the video that we're going to talk about things you can upgrade the factory parts for. Now, I know I may catch hate for this. I'm not going to put the money in a Dana 35. They're just not a strong axle whatsoever. Once you start going with bigger tires, then you start creating problems. Because that Dana 35, once you get past, and I may even catch some heat for this, past a 33, you're in trouble. Now, I say this kind of from experience, okay? Because this thing, of course, factory had the Dana 35 under it. And for the longest time, I had 31 1050s on it. Just about everybody starts out with a 31 1050. And then they're like, hey, I need bigger tires because I can't get over this obstacle. I'm losing ground clearance. 33s is next. Okay, yeah, we got 33s. Now you're getting over more obstacles. Then, dang, and you get harder and harder trails, and you need more and more ground clearance tires to get you there. But the problem is that Dana 35 is weak. Once you start getting above a 33, and even 33, you're knocking on that door, things start breaking. I've done 2 Dana 35 swaps in this thing. I've killed 2 Dana 35s. After that second one, I'm not doing it anymore. So in with the Ford 8.8. Now the reason I say I'm gonna catch heat for this, because there's so many people in the Facebook groups, YouTube and forums, whatever. I'm running 37s unlocked on my Dana 35. It's done just perfect for many years. Dude, you better get yourself a lottery ticket, because you're getting lucky, okay? So me personally, I'm not going to put the money in a Dana 35. I mean, there's this saying, buy once, cry once. Go ahead, spring for the 8.8. You can find them in the junkyard. They're everywhere. I've got a video to where my buddy Wayne, we walk around the junkyard, and we're looking for different 8.8s in the Ford Explorers. Ford Explorers, not the big vans, not Broncos. You need them out of the Ford Explorers. And again, this video touches on all that. Spring purchase, there's a little bit of welding, fabrication, and setting your pinion angle, stuff like that. It's not a hard swap, but it's not like you can pull it out of the Explorer, stick it under your YJ and call it a day. It's not quite that simple, but it's not hard. Now, being that this rig right here is a factory 307 rig, it's got 373s in it now. But if I wanted to do a gear upgrade anyway, and if I want to go to 410 axles, if I was lucky enough to find a Jeep YJ that come out factory with a 4-cylinder 5-speed, they come out of the factory with a 410 gear set already. So pull a YJ front axle from a 4-cylinder, go into this, and you got 410 gears in front. Go to the junkyard, and it's like the Explorers with the tow package or the 80 Bauer editions. Now the 80 Bauer edition is kind of hit and miss. You read all over the place, the 80 Bauer editions come out with a 410 gear set with a limited slip. Not all of them do. I have proven that wrong. But most of your tow packages come out with either 373s or 410s. But you just got to know the door tags. You look at the door tag and look at this plate on the axle, and it'll tell you what gear ratio it has. And again, I'll link that video up down below. You guys can watch that video and screenshot the thumbnail. I include a gear ratio ID tag. It says a D4 is this axle, a D3 is this axle, so on and so on. That tag is on the door of the Explorer, so that way you just open the door in the junkyard and say, oh, it's a limited slip 410. This is our axle. We want this one. Doing the 8.8 swap is a much, much stronger axle. So go to your junkyards, look at the Ford Explorers. You're going to find 2 different ones on the Ford Explorers, depending on what year you pull them from. I think it's 1995 and newer is what you want. I think the cutoff's 95 and up. It's because basically you look at, if you got rear disc brakes, there's the one you want. Now find the gear set and whether you want limited slip or open. But 95 and up, I'm pretty sure is where the cutoff is, to where you get factory rear disc. It helps a lot. It does a great job, and it's not hard to install them. Again, 8.8, limited slip, and rear disc brakes on this rig right here. Now, this is where y'all may ask me, well, Chuck, do you have a video on that one? No, I don't, actually, because the day I was putting that 8.8, I kept getting interrupted. Noises around me, pulling in the driveway. I mean, there was so much interruption going on that day, I didn't get none of the footage for that. So, maybe one day I'll do another 8.8 swap. You're a Jeep owner. You've bought yourself a Jeep YJ. You're going down the country roads with the wind blowing through your hair. Okay, insert jokes down there. Go for it. Then you look over. Ooh, there's a little hill. Let's climb that hill. You get to the top of that hill. Ooh, there's a little rocks. You flex up on it. You know, I'm flexed up on this little log that's really only about that tall. Not a big deal. Then you try a bigger rock. Then a bigger tree to flex up on. Next thing you know, you realize you are running out of ground clearance, because all of a sudden now your axles are dragging, your belly pan, your skid plates, and all that stuff. It just making all kinds of wild noises. Matter of fact, listen to mine. That was at ALP when I was on a black level trail at the top of it. Yeah. So there's different ways you can do a lift. I went to the junkyard and got me some S10 springs and did the junkyard style lift. Now, I did a collaboration not too long ago with a YouTuber, and down in the comments, I had somebody totally bashing my suspension lift here because they're using the S10 packs and not using, you know, Alcon springs or Old Man Emu or Rubicon Express or some kind of brand name springs. I used S10 junkyard leads, and now I've got a trashy lift. In that comment, they said that something to the effect that the springs will unload, and, you know, if I get off camber or something like that. I've been all over these hills right here. I've been all over ALP. I've been wheeling many different places with this rig. I've never once had a problem using a junkyard S10 pack lift, okay? It's not a big deal. But you know what it was? It was cheap. $150 all in. I had 2.5 inches of lift. Pretty easy. Yes, I got the videos. Go check them out. Now, it's a part 1, part 2 video. Part 2 shows me do some alterations to the rear part of the lift. For some stupid reason, I had a bright idea that if one spring is good, let's put 2 in. No, that was so bad. That was so bad. I put 2 S10 springs in the rear of this thing. It gave it so much lift that it overextended my shocks. And it bounced like that thing was on it bounced like an old covered wagon or something. And part 2 is showing where I corrected my mistake and put 2 S10 springs in the rear. That was a bad thing. Then you got aftermarket lifts. You go 1 inch up to a 4-inch lift. The more lift you go with the aftermarket springs, 1 inch lift, you can have this much arc. The more lift you get, the more arc you get in the spring. The more arc you have, the more subject you are to inverting your springs. Meaning, when that spring goes down in articulation, it pulls the shackle back like this. So when it comes back up, if that shackle's too far back, it'll bend up in like this right here. It'll totally invert your spring and bend the heck out of them. So 4-inch springs, I'm not a big fan of. Just too much arc in them. Now that varies from one manufacturer to another. I know that. But as a general rule, I'm personally not a big fan of that much lift. Another thing you want to take into consideration too, the more lift you have, the higher your center of gravity becomes, the more unsteady you are. Like right now, this ain't camera trickery. The Jeep is sitting on a hill like this right here. I've got a level on my camera back in behind it that actually has my camera level. So the Jeep is sitting on a hill kind of candy-wampus like this. If you're really top heavy, the higher you get, the more the Jeep will want to lean and possibly flipping over with you. So you don't want a low lift. You want as much ground clearance as you can get by tummy tucks or something like that. Tummy tucks is when you take your skid plate, transfer case, and everything and move it all up to create ground clearance and using less lift, because that does not increase your center of gravity. It keeps your center of gravity low so you stay stable on the trails and in weird inclines like this to prevent toppling over. Now, how much lift do you need? That really depends upon you, okay? I know it depends on what size tires you want to run, how you want to wheel. I'm not going to tell you, do this, do that, whatever. Most cases, I'm going to say get yourself about 2 inches of lift or so, but the caveat to that is the more lift you get, again, center of gravity thing, but the more lift you get, the more increases your drive shaft angle, the more subject you are to drive shaft vibrations. The next lift really comes with a bit of, I don't know what the proper word will be, misconception or something, because you don't really have to buy springs for this lift. That's called spring over axle. Hold on a second, make a set of springs. Using our sticks, here's your axle, okay? Currently, stock YJ, your axle sits on top of your springs like this. But if you want to go spring over axle, it takes your axle, goes under your spring. Typically, you're getting about 5 inches or so lift out of that. But here's the problem. Now you've moved your axle down and all your bodies is still staying up here because here's your springs. It's moved the body upward. That increases your drag link angle. So people think, oh, wait a minute, I don't have to buy springs. That's a cheap lift. It's easy. No. Hold on there, young grasshopper. There's more to it than that. You've changed your whole steering geometry, okay? Now your drag link is sitting at an angle like this, and every time you hit a bump, it's going to push that drag link. You're going to have bump steer terribly bad. So now you got to change your knuckles. Knuckles go into a high steering arm, which brings your drag link and all that stuff up here, because you want your drag link as flat as possible and parallel with your axle and all that fun stuff. That eliminates bump steer. So Jeep newbies who buy these YJs thinking, no, they go spring over axle, think that's the cheap way out. That's actually the most difficult, involved way of lifting one to do it right. So now you got your lift on, you've got plenty of ground clearance, you got plenty of clearance between your axles and your fenders. And so what tire do we need now? We definitely need bigger tires. But what size? That's up to you. Most people start out with 31 1050s. Just about everybody does, including myself. Then I went from 31 1050s to 33 1250s. So then I went from 33s to 35s. Now that's probably as big as I'm ever going to go on this rig right here. Rust bucket, I'm going probably 37s, 38s, maybe even 40s. But the front axle I'm putting under rust bucket, I don't want to, it's only a Chevy 10 bolt. So I would love to go 40s, but I think I'm pushing my luck with that Chevy 10 bolt. So what size tire you're going to run is completely up to you. You want to run something that's got some good meat to it. You want something that's got some good knobby side biters, because whenever you start getting into mud, for instance, I'm not a mud fan. I mean, don't get me wrong. People get in a mud hole, they have a lot of fun stepping on the gas, wide on the throttle, slinging mud everywhere. Whippy. Me, I like doing the rock crawling because it's always changing, You got to go a little bit left, a little bit right, watch your lines, go this way. I mean, there's so much more calculation going on with rock crawling up a rock bed or whatever. You got to think 3 or 4 steps ahead of it as you do your thing. Mudding is kind of like, okay, you're driving a mud hole, step on the throttle, hope you make it. Just not my thing. I mean, I know some people like it, but whatever. But the type of wheeling you're going to do is going to tell you what kind of tires you have to have. Personally, I think go as aggressive tread as you can handle, and I say can handle because typically the more aggressive tread you have, the more road noise. So the aggressive tread, do your research, get on the forums and Facebook groups and stuff like that, ask questions. Which tires do they like? If you're not a fan of road noise, then you're going to stay on the conservative side of your tread patterns. Me, I could care less on how loud that sucker is, because I'm out here to have a good time. I want as much traction as possible. I like playing. I couldn't care less about, how loud something is. But don't ask this question, okay? Don't get on and say, I want the most aggressive tire I can possibly get, but I don't like road noise. Don't do that. You will get roasted, okay? So after you got all that done, one thing I'd highly do recommend, put a winch on that bad boy. Because there's times, I've been out here wheeling by myself several times. And you're supposed to wheel with somebody in case you get in trouble, they can help you out. But there's houses not far from here. This is my aunt's property. So I can come out here anytime I want to, do whatever I want, whatever, because my dad and I help maintain all this stuff. But there's a tree right over here that I was coming down off this, and I got hung up on that tree. My skid plate hung completely up. I had to pull a winch from over there over to this tree. Well, actually, I pulled off that tree to get myself off that big log up there. I was there by myself. Man, I could have made a phone call. Somebody been here, no time to save me, no problem. But having a winch, I took care of business myself. Now, just because you got a winch doesn't mean you should be out there by yourself. There's a couple places up around Bowling Green, which isn't too far from me, that I would probably wheel by myself. But going to AOP, Windrock, I'm going to be with some other crew that I'm meeting there to get me out of a jam if something goes wrong. And more than likely, too, if I go to Windrock, and I went to AOP a while back, and I drove down there and drove back, but I didn't wheel hard, simply because I had to drive this junk back. If I had trailered this thing down there, it's time to get dumb. And most of all, you people out there who love mud holes, you look over, oh man, look at that. That's going to be fun to splash in. It's 3 inches deep. Try that. Now, earlier in the video, I mentioned lighting. Notice LED headlights. Now, let's just face it. CJs, XJs, YJs, TJs, all of them, their headlights are terrible. They're terrible. And if you're out trail riding at night, I love wheeling at night. It's a lot of fun. You got to be able to see what's going on in front of you. And some of those lights are just so yellow and dim, it just doesn't light up the trail in front of you very well. So it just makes it hard seeing what the next obstacle is going to be. Not to mention, you're going down an old country road and you got deer running. Heck, on the way up here, I almost run over a turkey. I mean, that sucker was like right, just inches I missed it. But if you get a deer running out in front of you at nighttime, a good set of headlights that reaches out there, you'll be able to see that deer before it becomes a really bad situation. So you got your new headlights installed. Make sure they got a good sharp cutoff. It focuses the light in a specific pattern so you can see what's going on in front of you. Much, much, much better. And again, you're not blinding people coming at you. And speaking of, it is your responsibility to aim those things properly. And if you don't, in Tennessee, you will get a ticket. Now, it may differ from your area, but here in Tennessee, anything from headlights down, they say you can run them because they're deemed as fog lights. But again, they got to be aimed properly, and they can't be those type of lights that sprays light everywhere. They got to be a good concentrate beam that whenever you aim the beam at a certain spot, it's not going to be shooting into incoming traffic as you're going down the highway. So on Powerhouse Crew, there are some good, inexpensive upgrades you can do to your Jeep Wrangler YJ to get you ready for those medium to lightweight trails. If you have any other cool suggestions, leave them down in the comment. If I get enough cool suggestions down below in the comments, maybe I'll just create another video using y'all's suggestions and I'll give you guys a shout out on the channel. So if y'all enjoyed this video and you learned a little something from it, give me a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't, leave those cool comments down below. Appreciate y'all hanging out. Peace. Later, y'all.